This is the latest edition of Front Up, and I'm Whitey Willauer, and I got a great guest today, Bill Steelman.
Hi, Whitey.
Hey, Bill. Tell me, what are you doing here on Nantucket? What's your role here in this island of ours?
Well, right at this point, I'm the associate minister of the First Congregational Church. It's a part-time job. This is a second career for me. And as the associate pastor, I jokingly say my job is to do whatever the senior minister doesn't want to do. But I'm primarily involved in adult education programs, Bible studies, and then I assist in service, in the worship service each Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Yeah. When there are Sunday birders out, I understand, but
that's right.
They're our competition. So we do meet, and I preach, do the sermon. Normally I assist in the service doing various worship things, and then every 6 or 8 weeks or so I actually preach the sermon.
Now what did you do before you came here?
I had a 32-year career in New York City banking.
I see.
Most of which was spent at a modest-sized bank, a very highly rated bank, a United States Trust Company of New York.
So you were a banker, and then when you finished banking, did you then go to seminary or?
Well, I retired from banking in 1995 and started seminary in 1998, in September of 1998. But I knew I had decided later in my banking career I wanted to do this ministry thing. But moving to Nantucket it sort of put a crimp in that, because how do you go to seminary living on Nantucket, which did turn out to be a challenge.
Well, now, did you choose Nantucket? Were you here in Nantucket before that, or?
Yes, we made the decision to move to Nantucket before I made the decision to go into the ministry.
So you have a lucky break here then, deciding to go to Nantucket and then finding a follow-on job, a retirement job.
Yes, and I didn't know that when I started the seminary in 1998. Yeah. At that point, the Congregational Church here had a full staff. Yeah. But during the 4.5 years it took for me to get my Master of Divinity degree, during that time, Tom Richard left. And the associate minister at the time also left, so that by the time I graduated, we had a new senior minister and there was an associate's job open. Just very serendipitous.
So you really backed into it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
That's a fair statement. Yeah.
Yeah, I was prepared, if necessary. We were prepared to move to someplace else in New England. So it was a possibility that wherever a job would lead, but I was certainly hoping to do something on the island.
Now, what kind of things are you doing as an associate minister? Give me sort of
Well, for instance, this morning, every Friday morning, I do a Bible study at our island home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's sponsored. It's part of the ministry of the Congregational Church, but it's not just for our members who are residents there, but we have others and people from the church come, as well as people who are residents of our island home. So we do that, and then virtually every Sunday morning we have a 10 o'clock service, worship service. At 9 o'clock. I have an adult education class that considers all kinds of subjects. We're just starting now, if you want to come Sunday, we're just starting a new series on the 7 deadly sins.
Oh, really?
and how they apply to us today. And we're starting on Sunday with the best of all, and that's lust.
I see.
But we did a series during the summer that got a lot of interest, and and some of these have unique names to attract attention. It's "What's the Least I Can Believe and Still Be a Christian?" was the ceremony.
I see. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And then, do you have family here?
No. Actually, we have 2 sons, but one followed me into banking, and he's in suburban New Jersey. And then the other son is a younger son, is a high school teacher in Hershey, Pennsylvania. So fortunately, being due to my position as an associate minister, I'm able to get away a bit to see them. So
I see.
That our senior minister is very understanding of that.
Now, do they provide housing for you, the church, or do you have your own housing?
No, we have our own house. Normally, an associate minister doesn't get his or her housing provided for.
Now, how large is the congregation of the Congregational Church?
On our books, we have 350 members, and that includes both people who are here year-round, and also we have summer members, people who we have a class of membership known as associate members. So people from around the country who spend 2-3 months here are oftentimes become associate members of the church. Now, on a given Sunday morning during the off-season, we would have 110, 120 people at the worship service. During the summer season, we move into the big church, as we call it, the summer church. And there we'll have 200 to 240 from year-round people who are here, who have houses here for the summer, and then people who just are visiting for the weekend will come. We get people from all over the country.
Then you have a theater there also, don't you? In the
yes, Bennett Hall.
Bennett Hall, yes.
Yes, and in fact, we're just about on the verge of signing a fairly long-term agreement with Theater Workshop of Nantucket to be really their home theater. As it is now, the theater groups generally just rent for 6 weeks for each production, but apparently, assuming we go forward, and it looks like we will, they'll have a more permanent home at Bennett Hall.
Now, does the church use that space, or?
Yes, we use it for a limited amount. The biggest point is our youth group. And that's the critical thing, is to determine how, working with the theater group, we're going to be able to have our youth groups do their thing on Friday nights over the weekends.
Well, that's noble, yeah. Then how often do you actually give a sermon?
About, I'd say on average, every 7 weeks.
Yeah.
It's a combination of when Gary Klingsporn's our senior minister, when he is away, because after all, he does get vacations. So when he's away, I preach. But also I preach a couple of times a year when he is there as well, to dispel him, to give him a chance so he doesn't have to do. Having to do a sermon every week is quite a challenge for ministers. Of course, ministers do it all the time. But I know from doing one every 7 weeks, it's a real challenge to do one weekly.
Spend a couple of days getting ready, or do you have to think weeks in advance?
Well, I actually start weeks in advance. I spend a lot of time for coming up with something that goes from 15 to 20 minutes.
And you write it all out, or you do it from memory?
I write it all out, but I try as much as possible to not read it, but have it there as a prop, if I do need to look down. But normally, since I have this long lead time, I can pretty much get it memorized, because there's nothing that will put people to sleep faster than a minister reading a sermon. I mean, they go to sleep easily enough as it is.
So now, how do you get feedback? I mean, what kind of feedback do you get once you've delivered a sermon?
Oh, I get very strong feedback, because I tend to be a little bit more on the controversial side. And so the feedback I get is, if it's good feedback, you hear it loud and clear. People come up to you and just say, "Bill, that was a terrific sermon. You really hit me where I was. I really felt moved by it." You get that feedback. The negative feedback is people don't come and shake your hands after the service.
Oh, you get a wilt away?
Yeah, they just sort of kind of filter away, or they just come up and say, "Good job," and that's...
good job, it means...
if somebody comes up to you and says "good job," you know that you missed it with them. I've very rarely have I had anybody come up and sort of say, "You really did a weak job," and
You haven't had that?
I never have had anybody come out directly and say I did a bad job.
Or said the wrong thing.
Right.
Well, I probably asked you all I could possibly ask you about that. Have I forgotten some things that I should have asked you?
I think maybe you could say, how have I found the transition from such two unlikely things?
Oh, well, yeah, that was
banking and ministry.
Yeah.
And it's actually it's been interesting. A lot of the skills I had in banking are transferable in the sense of being hopefully organized, being able to express yourself, being able to read people and to understand people. But however, though, I went through counseling. Ministers have to do a certain amount of counseling. I went to a firm for a couple of days to be analyzed, and I took I think it's called the Myers-Briggs. It's a personality panel that you take, and the counselor said that he had never seen anybody with my particular profile who was going to become a minister.
I see.
He said it was a great profile for a banker. He's seen none of that, but he's never seen a minister with this profile. I can never remember what my profile is. They're in initials, that INSP, and they're all very, very technical things.
But did he say you'd make a good minister from that?
But he quickly said, that doesn't mean, though, that you aren't going to be a good minister. He just said it was unusual. But I have found it to be not at all contradictory to do that. You can't be as harsh with people as I was in the banking. You do get
you can't
a
say,
sense
we
of
don't
that.
want you in this bank.
We can. If somebody comes in for a loan, you can just tell them no, we're not going to do it. But if somebody wants to come into your church, even if they are maybe a little bit troublesome, you
welcome them in.
Welcome them and do the best you can with them.
Do you meet with the other ministers and the other priests and other people of the faith?
I do, because I also serve, I should have mentioned this, I serve as president of the Interfaith Council.
Oh, you really?
So that's a group that meets both ministers and lay people from not only the Christian churches, but also the Jewish congregation comes to the meeting. So we meet once a month and share experiences, share information about what we're doing that other groups can cooperate with, and that is a group that also sponsors the food pantry, and the rental assistance program.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I do. There's wonderful cooperation and feeling between the ministers and priests and the other religious figures on the island. We all get along very well.